I'm John Kaiser at the Metals Investor Forum in Toronto, March 4th, 2023. I am speaking with Michael Gunning, CEO of VR Resources. Mike, welcome to Toronto.
Good morning. Thanks, John. Thanks.
VR Resources for the past few years has been focused on the Kapuskasing structural zone in Ontario of the James Bay lowland. Looking for IOCG systems, of which Olympic Dam is, of course, the model that you would love to find. The focus has been the Heckler Kilmer project, which turns out to have a very interesting rare earth enriched zone that isn't just a light rare earth system, but also has an 8 to 10% heavy rare earth component. And that's really important because the four magnet rare earths, they are the ones that all the value resides in. Now, the focus has been on the pipe zone. What is happening in terms of figuring out where this zone is going, how big it's going to get, and what are you doing next to turn this into a deposit where you start doing feasibility demonstration work?
Yeah, we're 4 drill programs into Heckler Kilmer, and you're right. We went in looking for a large footprint system, and we found iron oxide apatite, the deeper, hotter roots of an IOCG system higher up in a big alkaline complex. So the 2 niches so far, you're right, it has scale. The alteration of mineralization is over an area of 2 by 3 kilometer in 3 different areas. There are, I think, 16 of 21 drill holes with a % TREO. The niche is, of course, that 18 to 20% proportion in the permanent magnets, which is why this mineralization has value potential. So what do we do? Well, discovery is not an event, it's a process. And last year, still 3 years into the program, we completed a state-of-the-art drone magnetic survey. It gives you an unbelievable scale of resolution. And we did an MVI inversion. And we know in our drill logs that this mineralization is correlating with the most intense magnetic susceptibility, TREO, hydrothermal magnetite. And we'll show this afternoon that you can see in this new MVI model that amongst these drill holes with mineralization, hole 13, the 460 meter intersection, is in the south end of about a 700 meter clear north trending structurally controlled magnetic susceptibility concentration anomaly, which is just the evolution of our data augmented by this new drone survey. That's where we're going to be drilling this spring to try and address your question. Heckler Kilmer checks a lot of boxes in terms of location close to outer rapid, mineralization at surface, composition. The big question now is volume potential, and that's what we're going to try and address, hopefully in 4 to 8 weeks.
Now, in Rare Earth Mania 1.0, which ran from 2009 until about 2011, juniors were very effective at finding rare earth deposits and delineating them, coming up with a resource estimate. But they were kind of late getting started with what's really critical with rare earth deposits. What's the mineralogy? What's the flow sheet going to be? I understand you are actually like ahead of the curve on that. Even as you're trying to put together the tonnage, you're starting to study the mineralogy. What have you learned so far about the pipe zone and the mineralization there?
Yeah, we're doing that concurrently, you're right. And so the technology that we've thrown at Heckler Kilmer over the last 3 years has given us a very consistent story on correlating the total rare earth oxide with phosphate, essentially. And whether it's in our XRF core scanning in 2021, whether it's in our whole rock geochemistry via lithium borate fusion, or as we released 2 weeks ago, scanning electron microprobe on mineralogy, the permanent magnet rare earth elements at Heckler Kilmer are in monazite, within apatite, and in parasite, a fluorocarbonate. And you're right, it's critical, excuse the pun. Many of these light rare earth carbonatites that juniors were working on and have been discovered in Canada in the 60s and 70s, they're in refractory minerals or they're in silicates. And although they have the resource, we don't have the technology to get them out. As you know, John, the first and only rare earth element extraction facility is in Saskatoon. It's new and it's based on monazite because extraction out of monazite is proven. So although the data from 2 weeks ago is new and an important part of mineralogy is phase 1 to metallurgy, we've really had the same story since 2021 when we did the first QuemScan analysis on thin sections with STS. It showed the same thing. rare earth elements, fluorite, carbonates, and phosphate.
Have you figured out where the terbium and dysprosium, which are the heavy magnet rare earths, are hiding? Which of the minerals?
I'm going to say they're in monazite within apatite. Now, there is monazite in the matrix of the breccia, but there's also monazite within apatite. So I think right now, that's where we're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, this whole area, the Kapuskasing structural zone, has seen exploration multiple times in the past decades. It's sort of the northern half is covered by
Yes.
carbonates and so on, but there's intrusives there that have magnetic signature. And last year, you drilled a hole into one that had never been tested. The
Northway?
the Northway target, and you intersected something that you were hoping for, a diatreme breccia, but it's not. It's something very different. It's a surprise to me. This could be like the beginning of something extraordinary, a hidden undercover kimberlite field that was never exposed to glaciation and till sampling. What can you tell us about this new target that's very large?
Yeah, it is exciting. It could be the proverbial game changer. Heckler Kilmer was a known alkaline complex. What we didn't know is that it had the rare earths, and that's the discovery. So Heckler Kilmer is about magnetic lows. That relates to our hydrothermal mineralization, and it's on structure. 12 kilometers to the north, we took our drone technology and flew Northway because it's a large magnetic low on structure. And we did find a breccia, but it's not a hydrothermal rare earth element breccia. It is a kimberlite diatreme breccia pipe that we hit at the base of the limestone succession. It's covered. There was regional diamond exploration by people like De Beers and Selco through the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. The kimberlites are younger, they come to surface, and they are magnetic high buttons. Northway is a magnetic low. It was not previously recognized, it wasn't previously explored. And when you look at the drill core, John, and you see the interbedded relationship of the kimberlite diatreme breccia with the Devonian sandstone, the kimberlites at Victor, for example, all of that exploration in the 70s and 80s that led to the Victor discovery, they're 170 million years old. They're Jurassic. They're much younger. This is not only a new kimberlite breccia pipe, it is potentially a new kimberlite breccia field of Paleozoic age that we didn't know about before in the Northern Superior Craton. So fortunately, VR, in November, when we saw the green rock come out of the core and said, this isn't Heckler Kilmer, we were able to take our expertise of working with regional magnetic data for the last 4 to 5 years and stake all of the magnetic lows that were not previously explored, not previously drilled, that look like they have the attributes of Northway, with the idea of not only is this a new kimberlite, could this be a new kimberlite field? And so that came out of the work last November, and taking 3 or 4 months to look at the drill core, with some people out of the diamond field, diamond community. We did the news release 2 weeks ago to say, this is what the diatreme breccia at Northway is. It's a kimberlite.
Now, diamond exploration is nothing like exploring for copper, gold, even rare earths. You have to first determine that it is diamondiferous, and then you need to determine what grade it has, and then you need to find out what the quality of the diamonds are, so that you can finally calculate the rock value and see whether or not this is worth developing. So what's going to be the timeline for first finding out what is the dimensions of this system? What is the potential diamond content? And of course, you're going to want to test these other targets too, because the first one isn't necessarily the one that's going to go into production, which is what happened with Diamet and Point Lake 30 years ago. So what kind of timeline can people expect who think that you have come onto something big but still needs validation?
Because of the location of Heckler Kilmer near Otter Rapids, we hope to be back at Heckler Kilmer in April doing some drilling for metallurgy and drilling these new areas of mineralization on the MVI model to hopefully show you volume of these high-value PMREOs. What we intend to do at the end of that drill program is go to Northway and literally complete the drill hole that we started. We are on the top and the edge of that crater facies of that kimberlite pipe. It is all below us. Because we have the drone magnetic data, this anomaly is about 1.2 kilometers across. And it is huge. And when we look at the high quality derivative products of the mag maps, we know what the boundaries are. We're not just looking at a blue bullseye on the map. We can see boundaries in the derivative products. So we will go in April and May, hopefully, and complete 2 drill holes down into, through, and across the center of this dynamic kimberlite breccia pipe. We can see the various textural facies in 40 meters, and we're on the edge. Complete those 2 holes, allow us to do complete geochemical sampling so that I can tell you what the real compositional detail of that kimberlite is. Once I've done that through the summer, we then will take every millimeter of those 2 long drill holes and assess the diamond potential. And I think you sort of see that playing out through April, May, and having those results in the fall, if we can get those drill holes done in the next 8 weeks. At the same time, John, what I would do is take our drone magnetic technology and really give ourselves the same high quality magnetic data over the other 25 targets that we have staked to match the quality that we have at Northway. And so by the end of 2023, I will hopefully be able to tell you composition of Northway, get these drill holes down through the center and across, address, you're right, is this diamondiferous? Is this kimberlite fertile? And at the same time, bring the other targets up to the same level of, okay, we're ready to drill these targets now.
Now, I'm of the view that all this focus on critical minerals is going to attract a lot of attention to existing, alkaline intrusive complexes that have these exotic minerals in it. And this region, there's the James Bay carbonatite intrusion closer to James Bay itself. If you have this couple dozen of similar mag lows, and you mentioned Heckler Kilmer is a mag low because of the magnetite destruction caused by the hydrothermal system. What's the chances that these targets, which aren't as big as the Northway, potentially turn into other interesting intrusions that might have niobium potential and maybe even other rare earth intrusions? Because you don't need a giant, 200 million ton.
No, you're right. I agree.
Deposit.
I agree.
What's the outlook for this?
I think our job in exploration is to look for anomalies, whether it's a carbonatite, whether it's a kimberlite, whether it's a VMS. They are anomalies to their host rock. And as you know, we went into the Kappas casing looking for big hydrothermal footprints on structure. And our work at Heckler Kilmer has been about identifying the importance of these magnetic lows, reversals, hydrothermal activity. And so you're absolutely right. I would go into these 25 anomalies saying the model that we staked them on was drilling Northway and finding kimberlite, but they could well be very tight, true carbonatite plugs with magnetic low signatures that give you the kind of concentration of these high value PMREOs that we're focused on within Heckler Kilmer. Heckler Kilmer is 5 by 7 kilometers. That's good because it's a large polyphase host, but the mineralization that we're looking for is in these focused hydrothermal systems. So I think your approach is absolutely right. You go into the targets that have been staked outside of Northway as simply an expansion of the Heckler Kilmer strategy. Could they be kimberlites? Yes. Could they be a specific isolated carbonatite plug with rare earth elements or niobium? Yes. At Heckler Kilmer, that carbonatite is inside the alkaline complex. So that magnetic low is 7 kilometers across and very complicated. But that carbonatite that's in Heckler Kilmer, if it's coming up as an isolated stock, you're absolutely right. It could be one of these magnetic lows. And so that's what we'll evaluate. And I think we'll start with some very cost-effective drone magnetics so that I can show you not just the anomaly, but the boundaries and the geometries of it. And it will allow us to then plan the drilling accordingly.
Now, the company is also a gold exploration company focused on the Walker Lane of Nevada, where you we're pretty much focused before you pivoted to the James Bay lowland region. What's the status of the Ansel and these other projects that were the gold focus right now?
Right. The company was founded on looking at large, underexplored copper gold footprints in Nevada, heavily explored in the 50s and 60s and 70s in the porphyry boom. But as the mining industry collectively went to South America, Nevada was certainly on the base metal side a little bit forgotten about. And that was the foundation of this company, looking at these large footprint systems, similar to things like Heckler Kilmer. And so Heckler Kilmer was an extension of that work. And so we have had 4 to 5 different assets. We started on the Bonita porphyry copper gold system, started looking at Amsel, which came out of when you are working in Nevada, we get approached. There's a geological community that knows us, and we were able to acquire Amsel. We drilled last spring, found 200 feet of, I think, 15 grams silver with the right kind of alteration and the right kind of pyrite. But one of the projects that we also have is New Boston. It's really our second porphyry system. And Big Oil was exploring in the 60s and 70s for porphyry copper. And in this case, it was ConocoPhillips and Gulf. And they defined, John, what in their words was a world-class moly system in footprint. Sheeted veins and dikes that you can follow for almost 4 kilometers, certainly 2,100 meters continuous. 1981 rolled around and the bottom fell out of Big Oil and minerals, bottom fell out of copper in Western US for the most part. And New Boston was never revisited to essentially finish what Conoco started. There was tremendous expertise in Big Oil in our business. And so we're not going down to reinvent what Conoco did. Their work was outstanding. It's more, we're going down to finish what they started. We can apply 2 state-of-the-art technologies in IP and magnetics to refine what they wanted to drill in the center of the system, but literally didn't have the chance to do. This system, John, is 5 kilometers from a highway on BLM ground that we can permit in 15 days. There's a water source 5 kilometers away. And I agree with Conoco that it is world-class footprint and even grade in moly, but it's not a moly system. It's copper, moly, silver. And there was one recent drill hole in 2010 on the very eastern periphery of the system. And you can see 0.25 copper with 5 grams silver. It's hard to believe, but the drill holes that Conoco used to calculate their mineral volume in the center of the system, there is no copper and silver geochemistry. And we're all aware of the price of copper. I wasn't aware until last summer what the price of moly has been doing because of difficulties in moly production in both China and South America. And the plan here is to go back with very cost-effective state-of-the-art technology, finish what Conoco started in terms of vectoring, and complete the first drill holes into the center of the New Boston system. There should be a porphyry stock there feeding these sheeted veins. And for the first time, tell the mining industry, what is the actual copper, silver, moly grade potential of this sheeted vein system that has a truly world-class volume and footprint?
Yeah, I might add that molybdenum has hit $40 a pound, which is now the level that it hit during the China super cycle. And I understand the reason is not just problems with the roasting capacity and that, but it's that China seems to be using a lot of molybdenum for some shipbuilding. So they continue to expand their navy. It's part of this whole geopolitical conflict, great power conflict. And there's also pipelines being laid to connect to the Russian gas. So I think suddenly there is this new Chinese demand. And China is, of course, the biggest moly producer in the world. So coming up with a copper and moly enriched system in Nevada, that could be a big story later this year.
I was in the field in Nevada last fall, returning from some reclamation at Amsel, and drove by our New Boston property. And I literally came back and talked to my chairman about what you're speaking to, what's going on in the world of moly. And I simply said, it is time for this company to put New Boston at the top of our priority list. To segue to Heckler Kilmer and the Argor deposit in niobium, moly makes steel stronger and lighter. And what I'm learning over the last couple of years with our exploration in Heckler Kilmer is the role that niobium and moly play in the decarbonization of the steel industry by, if you have steel with moly and niobium, it's stronger and lighter, and therefore you need less steel. And the decarbonization of that industry, John, is impressive the more we integrate these things into our steel. So I agree, it's not just a supply issue, it's a demand issue on moly and niobium. And as you know, in North America, we have walked away from the moly industry a long time ago. And I think the time is right to see if we can put this on the map for major mining companies to make them understand what Conoco was actually mapping on surface and literally never drilled to completion.
One final question. You clearly are becoming more of a critical mineral type company. When and what would be the trigger for, say, spinning out the gold portfolio into a separate company?
Sure. I think when we can achieve standalone intersection at AMSL to get to the southern structural block of that target, or we can complete these 3 holes in the center of the New Boston system and show that this Conoco system is real, they can stand on their own as spin-out companies, and I can create more value for my shareholders because they are logically separated from Northway and Heckler Kilmer, which are already starting to demonstrate standalone potential. And I think that's how we could really optimize value for VR shareholders.
So I see 4 potential spin-outs. There's the gold package in Nevada. There's New Boston if it turns into a major copper moly discovery. There's the rare earth Heckler Kilmer type of systems in the James Bay lowlands. And if the kimberlite turns out to be a diamondiferous part of a new cluster, you have a diamond spin-out also.
Yeah.
What's fantastic.
I agree, John. Thank you. That's the way I see it. We have tried to balance diversity with focus. We have been executing drill programs every year for 7 or 8 years. They don't sound like they're related, but they are extensions of the work that we started at Bonita. And you're right. I think for our shareholders, we have the potential for 4 discoveries and projects that can literally stand on their own 2 feet and create their own value curve.
Excellent. I've been speaking with Michael Gunning of VR Resources at the Metals Investor Forum in Toronto. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks very much, Jim.